Okay, folks, we're with Barry Levinson in Fullerton right now, and Mr. Levinson really had a very powerful speech last night he delivered to the Fullerton City Council. And I know that he has a couple more words he'd like to say in addition to the comments that he made, because he was limited to 3 minutes. And Mr. Levinson, I'd like you to let us all know what comments you have to further add to what you put out to the public last night.
Well, I hope a lot of people get to hear what I had to say yesterday, because it showed how corrupt for how long the city of Fullerton has been. But what I'd like to say in addition, I remember when I first started going to meetings regularly, and that was in the year 2010. So I've been doing this now for starting my this is like my 9th year, where I've paid very close attention to what was going on. And believe you me, I'm somebody who I would never would say is naive, but when I started to pay attention to what was going on at City Hall, I was shocked. Because in my wildest imagination, I never thought things could be as bad as they are. I had the foolish impression that because city government is close to the people, that a lot of people who live in Fullerton know the council members, you know, their neighbors, their acquaintances, their friends, their associates, that would entail a better run and a less corrupt system. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is more corruption in Fullerton at the local level than there is anywhere else. The only saving grace is the size of the budget. They have less money to squander and or steal and or give to their buddies for substandard contracts like the one at Hillcrest Park for the stairs, which they still haven't done anything, even though there's been much video evidence of the shoddy workmanship.
We even asked them to sue the contractor. They won't do anything.
Contractor, and they won't do anything.
They're a bunch of crooks.
Because who's their friend? Obviously the contractor.
The people that did that job are crooks.
Griffin Structures is the name of the company.
Griffin Structures?
They've done work at the railroad for the elevator, and supposedly that's another boondoggle. They want to. I read somewhere that they've proposed building a new fire station for Fulton for the measly sum of $6 million. I haven't.
But no one on the council has even bothered to.
Because they know who their friends are. Their friends are.
But that's just unbelievable.
Their friends are their contractors. Their friends are their special interests. They don't care. Obviously, they don't care at all about us.
So as long as it lines their fat pockets, they don't care.
Or helps them in their career to get to the next level, which will then line their pockets.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting free dinners.
Why do you think all these people want to become Orange County supervisors? Why do you think all these people want to be state senators or assemblymen? Because they make $160,000 to $170,000 a year, get great pensions, great benefits. For what? Well, for a part-time job.
Well, one of the things that I noticed,
they work once or twice a week at the supervisor's office. I mean, they literally put in about 10 to 15 hours a month, 20 hours a month, maximum. For what? For $165,000 and plus all the.
There must be stuff on the back end.
And then they have their own jobs.
But like they must be getting kickbacks or bribes.
Like Sean Nelson was a full-time lawyer in his law firm. And guess what? Your fees go up when you have connections. Not because you're good, because you have connections. And that's not saying anything bad about Mr. Nelson, but it's just a fact. When they know you have connections, your fees go up.
Nelson's a big fat phony. That's what that guy is.
But anyway, besides informing the public, one of the things at least I could take some solace in, and that is the atmosphere up until a couple years ago by the council members, and Don Bankhead epitomized this. You say something, you disagree with him, he made fun of you, he cut you off. He tried to make fun of you even though you were telling the truth. He did that to me a number of times. He couldn't keep his eyes open for most of the meeting, but he thought he was better than all of us. And he wasn't. And he was stupid. And he was corrupt. And like a lot of the other ones. And so arrogant. Well, and with the smirky smile when he would do it. Well, guess what? Because of you, Joe, and partially because of me and a few others, we've wiped their snarky, arrogant smiles off their faces, because it's no longer the fun, kiss your you-know-what to all the people on the dais atmosphere at City Council, because now a few of us are holding them to account, and they don't like it one bit. And we've wiped their snarky faces right off.
And I might add, this is in spite of their attempts to have us thrown in jail and try to frame us.
Right.
And in some cases, in your case, repeated attempts to have you thrown in jail for just to lure you into their trap, or to set you up, or in one case to totally fabricate a police report and have the police chief actually fabricate the police report.
When they had a video that was in their possession from day one that proved that it was all BS.
So there's a reason they wanted you and I out of the way, because
Yes.
there's $100 million or $150 million missing out of that city, from what we can gather.
Yes.
It's gone.
It's gone.
The roads are in ruin. The money's not there. Every other
I can't
city
say for sure where it went, but all
It's
I
not
know is
there.
the money was spent
on something else.
no, the money was spent in other cities. Not better off than us. Buena Park's not better off than us. La Habra's not better off
And we brought
than us.
this up before.
And we brought this up before. Why do they have nice cities? Why are their water mains and their sewer system been updated over the years and not ours? Why is it? Why is it?
Well, because that money
What's the
that money that was earmarked for all those municipal infrastructure
What happened to
projects
it?
was, I believe, funneled off into somebody's private bank account.
Well, I don't know that for a fact, but
I believe that's the case.
It's very suspicious, and the question is, when you have cities of equal wealth or similar wealth, and all the other cities are able to fix their streets and fix their sewers and their water mains, and we're not, the question is, what happened to the money? And
so we have anecdotal evidence and we have
and once
circumstantial
again,
evidence.
last night I asked them. We deserve an explanation. The citizens deserve an explanation.
Well, you're not going to
And
get
we're
it out
not
of
gonna
those
get
people. Not out of them.
Not out of them.
Now,
'Cause they're
we may
all-
get an explanation if one of these people, or several of them, end up in front of a grand jury, or if they end up on the stand, or if they end up in jail. We may get one of them to talk. And I can tell you right now that what's going on right now is the audit's coming, ladies and gentlemen, and there are going to be some people that are not going to be enjoying their cocktails at 2 o'clock in the
Well,
afternoon.
because of people like you, Joe, and some of the comments that I've made and others, I could say that the city council members on the dais, they have a cross to bear, and there's a price to pay for being on that dais, and that's what we've done, and hopefully, they will also. There will be real justice, and it won't be just how we make them feel, or how we make them feel guilty, or how we make them look criminal, but actually one day maybe the Orange County District Attorney or even the feds will hold them legally culpable, and they'll actually be held accountable by society. And I'm not holding my breath. Right now we'll have to just go with the fact that they know that they have a cross to bear and a price to pay, because their jobs, they all look like they've all gained weight, they all look like they've aged 20 years. Why? Because there's a lot of bad stuff going on in City Hall.
There is a lot of bad stuff going on.
And we've
You're right.
exposed a lot of it, and they don't like it one bit. And the job that used to be, like they were kings and queens, and we were the peons, and they could make fun of us if we said something they didn't like, now all of a sudden, they're in the hot seat, literally in the hot seat, and they don't like it one bit. And to that I say, too bad.
Well, it is too damn bad.
You chose your bed.
Years.
You chose your bed to be a phony, corrupt politician who favors the special interest and looks the other way when the interests of the public are on the line. And you made your bed. Now you lay in it.
So these dirtbags last night were actually talking about some bonds and some increased taxes to pay for all this financial ruin that they've created with this multi-decade abandonment of the public trust, and I believe all this malfeasance. I mean, you cannot deny that the conditions of our roads is totally unique to Orange County. It is totally unique to Orange County, but yet our budget, our sales tax revenue, our property tax allocation and the revenues are not unique to Fullerton. All the cities have very similar income streams and similar municipal obligations, but yet we can't meet the basic infrastructure needs.
When you want to look at roads that even come close to approaching the decrepitness and the lack of repair that our roads have, you have to leave the state of California and you have to go south of the border to some of the poorer cities in Mexico,
you have a good
South
point.
America,
And the
before
irony
you get
is,
anything close to what we have.
and ironically, some of the worst roads are in some of the most expensive neighborhoods.
Yep.
They have really neglected the infrastructure, even to the very people that bear the brunt of the property taxes. It's really despicable.
Yep. Well, I don't know. We're not getting what we pay for.
You know what's amazing to me, Barry, is how many people play ball with the crooks. I guess as long as everything works for them and they get to line their pockets, they're okay with all the bad stuff that goes on.
And what's also amazing is, in my comments, I'm pointing out how terrible the city has been, how we've been neglected as a citizenry, as taxpayers in the city of Fullerton for decades. I point out I'm a conservative. Yes, I'm also a registered Republican. But what I'm most proud about is that I'm a conservative, limited government, constitutional conservative. And for the last 40 years, for almost all of that time,
we've had a Republican majority.
We've had a so-called conservative Republican majority, and look where we're at. And now look what they want to do. They want to increase our taxes. They'll have to, because of all these deficits and all the money they're paying out from the pensions and the lawsuits, et cetera, and the money they need to start to try to fix the streets. They have to raise our taxes greatly. And what's going to happen? Probably our services, they're going to probably have to cut some of our services.
What little we already get.
So this is, I made the point in one of my comments earlier, it's as if you just went to a restaurant and around the street in your neighborhood, and the owner says, you know, I have to give you half the portion, but I'm going to have to charge you twice what the full portion would cost. That's what the city of Fullerton taxpayers and citizens have to look forward to.
And that's what they had up on on the screen last night. They had the projection showing how there's these deficits. And the solution is to stick it to us once again. And like Barry, you said, we're the ones that always get screwed. And let me tell you, folks, we're not putting up with it anymore. And when we are done with this, people are going to jail, and we're going to find the money that they all stole. And we're going to fix these roads. And if we have to fire every city employee and outsource everything and get everything done the right way, then that's what we're going to do. We're not going to stop until we get this city back in the hands of the people, and this infrastructure repaired, and the accounting accounted for, and the people that have been shredding documents at City Hall, we know who you are. We got your number. We got people that have seen you shredding documents, so don't think you're going to get away with this, because you cannot hide the paper trail, because it's there.
And Bruce Whitaker, shame on you for running on a platform of fixing corruption. That is laughable. I was your pick for 6 years, so you had to reappoint me. Only gave me praise, never had a negative thing to say. Always told me, went out of you to tell me what a great job I was doing and to keep it up. And then I guess I was doing too good of a job, so you had to fire me. But right before you fired me, and I guess it was all connected, I brought you a $4 to $5 million finding. $4 or $5 million of tax revenue savings over a 20-year period, because the city of Fullerton changed the management agreement with the Fullerton Golf Course, American Golf Course.
And so we're still getting ripped off. He's never tried to agendize it.
It's a continuing thing. It started in 2010, and it's continuing till for the next 20 years. We're 7-8 years into it, but for the next 12 years, we're going to still be ripped off for the tune of about $200,000 to $250,000 more than what we were paying before. And we have not only that we're going to be paying more, but our liability is greater. So the chances are of it even being greater than that, because the liability, before the liability was mostly the other way. Now it's mostly on the city.
You vote for Bruce Whitaker for Senate. You're a knucklehead. He's a complete political fraud.
And I handed him all the detail, all the proof, and he wouldn't talk to me about it privately. He wouldn't talk about it publicly. Nobody would talk about it. How dare you say that you're going to fix corruption? Bruce, you are full of it. You are the biggest phony. That's called being a traitor. You know, we have certain people over the years
Well, he's the worst kind because he comes in the name of conservative.
They're Democrats. They're liberal Democrats, and liberal Democrats usually like to spend money. They're the big government people. But Bruce and Greg are supposed to be the small government people. And yet, when there's a way to fix when there's a way to investigate Danny Hughes, which Bruce Whitaker told me not once but twice that he would do, if only somebody would bring it up.
After he tried to frame you.
After trying to frame me, and after him pretty much stating
after he
that
went
it was a
to
frame
great
job,
lengths to try to frame you, falsifying a police
wouldn't
report.
even bring that forward. Bruce,
No.
you are a coward. You are a fraud. You are exactly what the people don't need. You should retire. You know.
No, he actually should get a job in the private sector and actually work for a living for a change instead of sucking off the government.
To think that you deserve $160,000 to $170,000 for a part-time job, and you have not one accomplishment in almost 8 years as being a councilman.
Nothing.
Not one. Not one. You've done a lot of lousy things.
Well, yeah, Barry, and back to this whole issue, he's just one of the 5. You know, I mean, the rest of them out there are just as bad. You know, they're just as guilty.
Absolutely.
The only reason why Bruce is so bad is because he's supposed to be the conservative.
Because
he holds himself out to be
he's a hypocrite.
He holds himself out to be somebody he's not.
Yes, people voted for him because they thought it would make a difference, and when he could make a difference, hey, Bruce 6 months ago made the big deal about having a grant application to vote on that didn't have the grant application, and he railed and he railed and he railed. So I came the next meeting and I said, here's a simple solution.
Yeah, have it filled out and study it before you have it.
Here's a simple solution. The reason why you had to vote for it then is because everybody said, well, you know, the grant application has to be in by, you know, the next week, and if we put it off to the next meeting, we'll lose the application. Well, as a body, this is not the first time this has happened.
Lose the funding because there was a deadline.
Yes. Yeah. So all you have to do is make a rule that any item before the council that has a deadline must come before the council at least 2 meetings before that deadline. So when the phony council staff presents something that's not complete, the phony council members can't use the excuse, well, we got to pass it. And guess where that thing went?
Into the trash.
Into the trash. Not only into the trash, it wasn't even discussed.
Well, because they don't like to have stuff filled out. Because part of the way that they're stealing money.
So I guess he really didn't want to fix the problem.
Part of the way I think they're stealing money at City Hall is they're having a bunch of blank stuff approved and there's no back end.
That's really hard to. That's an excellent point, because
when they're approving blank contracts,
then the public, it doesn't go into the record what
as
the
to
grant
what was
money
approved,
was.
what was applied for,
so then
versus what's deposited.
It's kept quiet. It's kept quiet what the amount is. So then how do we know whether or not it was being used properly?
And the thing is when we start getting the right people in there to audit this, all the records are going to be there. I mean, they can't hide this. They may have been able to bamboozle the people, but all we know is that there's a tremendous amount of money that has to be missing because the roads aren't fixed. And
well, you know what the last council last year did? They changed all the rules so they can get, because it's so expensive, you know, to keep things on.
The records retention. They voted to start getting rid of stuff.
Getting rid of stuff because they can't wait to shred things because they know all the ghosts are in the closet.
Yeah, and they're all going to fall out and crush them.
That's because it's so cheap today to keep records. They can keep records you can keep records from the beginning of time, and it wouldn't have a dent in our crummy budget. And they said they had to do it because
memory's
of saving
cheap,
money.
And they're crooks, and that's why they want to destroy records.
Something might cost an extra $5,000. Well, we can't afford it. Giving an extra bonus to the police that costs $10 or $15 million or $20 million, well, they deserve it.
And they're going to pay out $20 to $30 million a piece for these police, and they're going to try to get their jobs back. So in closing, I guess one of the things that you said that really stuck to me is that there's now going to be a price to pay and a cross to carry for being a phony politician.
A price to pay, and I just hope and pray one day that they have also a price in terms of a legal jeopardy, that they all have that they be held accountable, and whatever criminal acts they committed, that they be held.
And this applies to all the people that work for the city.
And that applies to everyone who may have done that.
And if there are any of you out there with a decent bone in your body, come forward.
That's
you guys know how to reach us. This is Joe Imbriano and Barry Levinson, and that's all we got for you.
We'll keep your name anonymous, too.
And, you come forward and you tell us, and you help us, and you help the residents of this city, and stop living for yourself and your backyard barbecues and your barbecue islands and your ski boats and your 3-day work weeks and all your crooked pals that you like to overeat a bunch of meat with and drink a bunch of booze
And I want to
with.
say one other, can I say just one other real quick thing? People who don't like me, who don't like that I tell the truth and give facts, try to paint me as being totally anti-city employee. I'm not an anti-city employee. I'm sure there are a lot of regular workaday people in the city that go and do their job the best they can, just like any other job. I'm talking about the corrupt leadership.
It's the leadership. The guys that are cutting the trees and taking care of the sewer lines and fixing the streets.
They're doing their job.
They're doing their jobs. We're talking about upper management
Right.
that knows what we're talking about. And you guys, one of you needs to come forward. A couple of them need to come forward. Maybe one of the council members. One of you, if you have a decent bone in your body, open your eyes before you're staring into a camera in an attorney's office.
I've given up. I hoped and prayed that a Bruce Whitaker would do the right thing, and I talked to him privately about doing the right thing, and the man doesn't have
He doesn't have a decent
courageous
bone
in his body.
Or courageous. Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. We're going to sign off for now. But Barry, I am running again in 2020. I'm not going away.
Yeah.
So Mr. Embriano is going to be back. And we're not going to let stuff go until we get results, until the people in this community are made whole and the people that tried to rip us off for decades are held accountable. Good night, folks.
Good night.